Hey everybody, Brad Stevens here. Sorry, a few minutes behind getting started. New interface with Facebook got me a little tripped up, but we are dialed in and ready to go. So I'm going to get underway for any of you that tuned in live. So briefly, my name's Brad Stevens. I have a company called Outsource Access. I love doing this. I call this kind of putting experience to work and doing these mentor sessions. It's been a pleasure doing a couple of these with Accelerators organization and just seeing all of your conversation and comments. Very engaged group, and everybody here seems to be committed to accelerating and growth. So hopefully these are going to be some insights that'll be helpful in that process. But long story short, been a lifetime entrepreneur based out of Atlanta, Georgia. Launched multiple companies over the last 20 years in multiple industries, service industries, product-based businesses. And I really learned about the whole world of outsourcing and virtual assistants and growing my last company, and that led to me launching Outsource Access, which is my primary company now. And we grew to over 160 staff now in just over a year with operations based out of the Philippines. We provide vetted and trained virtual assistants for entrepreneurs and business owners all over the world. We'd like to think we kind of took out all of the challenges that most people experience in that world as they navigate it, because it's just where everything is going, and it's the norm of how small to medium businesses are going to grow and scale as the world's getting flatter. We need to tap into the global economy to drive things forward. So now we have our model is a fully managed kind of virtual assistant service program that we offer. So love doing these sessions. You guys, I'm fresh off a Peloton ride, so blood is pumping and ready to jump in and get to these questions and provide some answers. Hopefully, it'll be insights. And look, I'm going to try and follow a format. I'm going to try and give some advice if applicable, but try to be rooted in some experience. So it's not just advice, but rooted in experience. And I'll share an applicable tool if I can that may be helpful, a specific tech tool, and a book if one comes to mind that could be relevant for your topic that you're needing help on. All right. So I'm going to jump into the first one here. First, name of submitter is Steve Roush. Question he asked: how can I teach myself to adjust from a freelance mindset to a more consistent business leader mindset? His business description: I have a media company and we offer a long list of services. Many are specific to high-end imagery for commercials and live events. And we are usually called in for jobs as they happen. Every day is different as each job is custom to the project at hand. Sometimes I'm plugged into a position. Other times I am the lead on an entire 2-week project. Usually after the show or project is done, we are done and searching for the next one. I want to be more engaged with clients so we can help them realize their projects, not one at a time, but strategically over time. That is done by working together more often and becoming a trusted partner in success. If I can achieve that consistency, I shouldn't have to chase the next one so hard. Well, Steve, it's the story of many entrepreneur kind of getting things rolling and chasing the next sale, the next opportunity. And the first thing I'll just share from an advice standpoint, being a 20-year entrepreneur and launching multiple different companies, having successes, having failures, is you truly just have to want it bad enough to get over the hump of the old cliche of doing the work yourself versus managing and growing and scaling. You just truly have to make that commitment. A lot of people say they want to do it. It's something they aspire to, but they just don't want it bad enough. And 5, 10, 15 years later, they're still in the hamster wheel and haven't gotten out of the hamster wheel and have other people kind of engaged in helping run the business while they can focus on exactly what you said there, which is strategic direction of the company, focusing on high-level relationships and being, if any of you do the entrepreneurial operating system, EOS, it's being the visionary, and that's ultimately where you want to kind of evolve to, and that's kind of where I sit in my business. And you have kind of an integrator sort of as part of your team, and then key functional roles. So the first thing is you just truly have to want it bad enough. Is it if you find yourself something you've talked about for a long time but haven't taken action, it's just kind of dig in. Is it something you're really committed to? And then it's creating the architecture to create process. For me, particularly where I am, is I'm really focusing on leadership and how do I lead and grow the organization, because great leaders build more great leaders below them. And one of the books I love, and as a thought leader on this, I got a chance to speak at his Leadership Institute, is John Maxwell. And he has a book I highly recommend to all of you. It's just a staple Bible you keep on your shelf and reread every year, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And one of the laws is law of process. And I tell you, if you look at any successful business that's scaled and grown and the owner has emerged out of the administrative and operational clutter that we kind of call it, particularly in clients we work with, that's where VAs help a lot with, is you got to have process and system. It's not the most exciting, it's not the most fun, but documenting system and process is going to get you that place. I know Sean talked a lot about Trainual is a phenomenal product for that. I know they even have a discount relationship with AO to kind of explore, but getting processes and documented. And a lot of it's micro processes that can just set you free. I'll share an example with you. Like one of the things is I wanted to get a lot more video pushed and promoted out on social media. I'm always was prior to COVID was traveling a ton, or even when I'd go to the gym, I'd listen to a podcast for 30 minutes while I'm running. Why not take advantage of that content I consumed and do a boiler version of it and do a video and share it with my audience? People love summaries. So I had to create like a micro protocol because I wasn't doing it because I was having to hassle with it, record the video and push it out on social. So got my VA involved in some free tech tools and got to where I shot the video on my phone. I used Vimeo to click a button and upload it to the cloud. As soon as it got uploaded to Vimeo, my VA would get an email notification that it was up there. And then from the Philippines, she could download the video, use a free tool called Headliner to put all the captions on it, because most videos listen to without sound, and then use a $10 a month tool called Buffer and click a button and push it out to all social media. So I went from shooting a video in Atlanta to the Philippines and back on all over social media in 7 to 10 minutes by creating that little micro protocol. So you got to be committed to that process, and you got to get those things done so that you can live and breathe in those bigger strategic relationships and build long-term contracts, land and expand recurring business, so you're not in the weeds kind of executing. So again, from a tool standpoint, highly recommend checking out Trainual, and just some kind of a project management system as well. I have a friend of mine that's in a video production business also, part of the thing is so much was living in spreadsheets and things flying around is having a web-based project management platform, whether it's Trainual or Basecamp or Asana, those kind of tools that can help you be web-based. And then a book, that kind of correlates, I already mentioned, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, just to get you in the mindset of what it takes to get to that next level. You'll never kind of execute on it until you get in the right mindset. I've done a lot of leading in my life, but I'm constantly growing and find out I know what I don't know. And his second book I'd follow right after that is Developing the Leader Within You. It's a great follow-up to 21 Irrefutable Laws. And I've even got ordered a plaque. I'm going to literally have them printed, so they are sitting right beside me, so I'm keeping abreast of those laws. And the other one you probably heard a lot of people mention that's all about getting out of the business is the E-Myth. I know it's probably been mentioned a lot, but still can't recommend enough. Embracing those kind of content will get you in the right mindset to evolve to the next step. Next question, Adam Naquin, hopefully I said that correctly. Question, how can I hire and train a virtual assistant to help me with scheduling and managing calls and appointments? Business description, I'm looking for advice on how to transition my business calls into an answering service that can do my scheduling. It's not that I have a lot of calls, but the ones that come in are falling through the cracks or not getting taken care of fast enough. I currently use Verizon for my cell phones and have a girl that works on commission that handles my scheduling. The main problem is she works a full-time job as well, and sometimes she's not able to take care of the phones. I struggle answering the calls because I'm in the field working, don't know what to do, and it's not good for business. So, Adam, I can certainly attest I've been on the receiving end of that problem with a lot of people in the services, home services, market, whether it's HVAC or roofing or gutters, and it's very much a challenge. I agree with you. That's part of the challenge in that industry is a lot of people are trying to grow their business, and it's still a couple of guys in a truck and their cell phone, and they're trying to communicate with clients, and things fall through the cracks and so forth. So I'm not going to talk on this all day long when it comes to VAs and assisting with that. We do a ton of this actually for a lot of our clients, and it can be very, very cost effective. But it's a matter of getting the content that they would be engaging kind of out. So the first step I would recommend really on that is you got to prep accordingly. First of all, let's look at all the calls before you can train or bring on anybody to kind of take on that role. Is prep accordingly, and just set it up as if you're teaching and training a class on how to answer calls for your business. If you were teaching someone to do that, because that's literally with VAs and outsourcing, documenting system and processes. Going back to the last question, is identifying what are the majority of calls that come in. What buckets do those fall into? Are the majority of them about certain issues? And that itself may help you identify some things that need to be fixed in the business if you're having recurring calls about constantly someone being late or needing to reschedule. But highly recommend doing that. I highly recommend using a tool like Calendly or Appointment Core that allows your clients to be able to book automatically online with you. Can kind of facilitate that process. But get out on paper all the different types of calls that come in, so you can kind of organize them, bucket them, so you can kind of, if someone were to come into the role, say these are the types of questions that you're going to get. And it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of the questions fall in 20% of the kind of recurring areas. And then I would record calls too. There's truly nothing better for authentic training for someone stepping into a role to listen to recorded calls and take those, save them. and then name them and organize them based on the different types of scenarios. Here's someone calling in that had a problem. Here's someone calling in that need to reschedule. And you can show either examples of how to do things or how not to do things. That was one of my favorite things to do in my last company. We did a lot of outbound calling in the dental market, and we would record tons of calls and book and save them by example. And when we brought new people in to train, we'd listen to those calls together. We'd pause them, share what to do or what not to do. So a lot of things I'm telling you is how do you prep accordingly so that if you want to get someone plugged in to do this role, you need to do the kind of homework on your end to get clarity about what it is, what are the types of calls, get a training kind of set up for that person. A couple tools you can use for that is Tape-A-Call. It's actually a mobile app that if you're operating off a cell phone, it's called Tape-A-Call. You can download it and it allows you to record a call that's inbound. You kind of merge it together and it saves them as files on your phone. And then another thing is those calls are recorded. There's a tool called Trint, T-R-I-N-T, that will actually do free transcriptions for you. And there's a paid version. It's very cheap, though. So it actually can transcribe those calls as well. So again, in preparing sort of that training document. And a lot of you have heard me talk about Screencast-O-Matic or Loom to do screencast recordings, video recordings, if you're going to do a training for someone to kind of go through to kind of navigate and explain the process. So those are some things I would do, first of all, to prep appropriately. And a lot of times when people prep for a VA to do something in their business, as we see all the time, they uncover a lot of things that can be fixed or adjusted or other symptomatic issues in the business just by going through that process. So recommend getting dialed in there. And then when it comes to bringing someone on, I can speak to two sides. So you can go on platforms like Upwork and Fiverr. You can go on like a job board platforms like onlinejobs.ph, where you can go post and find individuals out there that are work from home on their own, not part of a business, that you can hire to do work for you. And as far as answering phones, you can set up like Ring Central. You can set up virtual phones. We've actually got clients that have shipped over like VoIP phones that our VAs literally just plug in the internet connection. It feels like they're right there, local. So you can set up individuals, or kind of like what our company does is we're like a managed service, right? So we're not as cheap as being able to go and pay someone directly, but you get a fully managed organization that has managers and infrastructure and training and so forth that's there to support and train in the process. It just depends on where you are in terms of budget and kind of what you're looking for. But those are the two different paths. But the biggest thing is getting that foundation set appropriately so that you're prepared to train the proper person when they come into that role. And I mentioned as far as I don't have a book specifically on that, but as far as a webinar, I'm talking with Sean about doing kind of a full 90-minute webinar that I do for a bunch of organizations where I go through all kinds of examples and case studies related to this that could be helpful that we'll share to you when it comes out. Gabriel Suarez, question, what are all the different things virtual teams can do for my company and how do we train them and manage them? Business description, I'm interested in learning more and potentially getting a VA. I hear many of you using them successfully. I know nothing about them. I own a young franchise company with less than 10 total locations, but in the process of scaling the business. Business is retail stores in the natural wellness sector. So Gabriel, again, this is obviously something, there's a lot of dimensions to that question that I could answer. But to get specific, what are all the different things VA virtual teams can do? To answer that part is there's a ton. You're really limited only by your creativity. Again, I'll speak from experience, just from our company, and just because I can speak from types of different things that we've done is operational, marketing, finance, QuickBooks, logistics, coordination, everything from posting on social media to graphic design to coordinating calls to supply chain for build out. There's a whole host of different things. Really look at it more as like a virtual staff, not a virtual assistant. When you use the word virtual assistant, a lot of people think, oh, they'll just be able to do some maybe light research and manage my calendar and book some flights. With our staff, we're doing full-blown QuickBooks management, social media management, operations. But a lot of times, because like in our model and some others that are out there, we only do full-time. And so it's finding other things that you split among that VA. So they may be spending part of their time doing some operational stuff, some marketing stuff, some QuickBooks things. And I would look for a company, and this is something that we designed as well as a hub and spoke model, so that you get a VA that plugs in that does a lot of work directly, but then they have a specialized team supporting them. So if something comes across their desk that you want from them to do that's not in their skill set, they can lean on a specialized resource. So we have over 200 specialized resources supporting our VAs So if anything comes across, like you need a one-off brochure done, or you got some raw footage of clients, and you want some testimonials, your VA may not be an expert in video editing, but you have an expert in that they can lean on, or that person can find them for you if you hire directly a VA on like a job board or something of that nature. So again, it's just the two different types of models. But I'll share with you, we actually work with a couple of franchises. We're actually working with one of the largest one in a home services franchise, and we have another big retail painting franchise we're working with. We're actually working with the two largest performers of that entire franchise chain nationally, internationally actually. And so with one of those franchisees, as you can imagine with franchises, it's actually a path we're looking to go down a lot more as well. Is they give you the playbook, but then you still have to do all the work, right? It's a great playbook of like how to execute, but then it's you and your team still having to execute and run it forward. So VAs can kind of plug in, learn that playbook, and that's what we're doing with these other franchises. So to give you an example with the one that's in painting, we're doing all the bookkeeping, the back-end bookkeeping for them. When clients call in and they're wanting projects done, they're helping to coordinate and manage all the logistics and planning for that painting project. Some creative things too is this franchisee had he's done over thousands of homes for people over the years. And they paint the home and then they leave, and he never is connected with or anything with those customers. So we actually took all of those customers, exported them out, and then had that virtual assistant log in under his LinkedIn account and connect with every single one of those customers he painted houses for the last number of years, over 3,000. And we ended up connecting with about 1,500 of them, and just connected and said, hey, just want to connect with you. Thanks for the opportunity to paint your house. Keep us in mind. And just by doing that one little exercise, drummed up tens of thousands of dollars of business in the first 3 days of doing it. And then another thing is, they go out and paint houses and none of them were taking before and after pictures, that they go out and wouldn't capture that. I was like, well, what are we going to do with them? Where are we going to post them? It's going to be stuck in somebody's phone. So again, creating a micro protocol would have the painters set up with a structure that whenever you go do the home, make sure you capture a picture before, capture a picture after, and when you're done, send both of those photos and set up an email address specifically that went to their VA in the Philippines that would then get those images, and the subject line would be the name of the customer. They take those images, go into a free tool called canva.com, create a graphic, a before and after, have the company's logo on it, then take that finished image, go back under the owner's LinkedIn and social media accounts, post it, and tag that customer in that picture, thanking them for letting them do the painting job. Now, basically, you're just celebrating work you just did for a customer, and you're getting the impact of it rippling through their social networks because you tagged them in it. So it's little things like this, and I share these examples to go deeper and down a rabbit hole here to show these are the micro things that you can do differently that most people would never think about because of time, dollars, or even just knowing it was possible, that you can do with outsourced virtual staff that's very low cost and effective. I mean, like with a managed service like us, we charge $1,700 a month for a full-time 40-hour-a-week VA with no health insurance or any kind of costs. If you go directly on a job board and hire directly, you can get it less than that, $800 to $1,200. Just depends on if you want a managed service or not. But it's amazing. They got to just help you land one additional client or retain one more, and it pays for themselves for the entire year. So I could go on and on about it, but hopefully those are a couple of examples that can make an impact. And I'll speak to some of the tools of how to extract out what that list should be and some of these other questions real quick. Next one is Marlena Carter. Question she asked, how can I determine if a company like mine would benefit from having a virtual assistant or team member? I own a pet grooming salon currently with 2 groomers. So Marlena, again, there's a whole number of things that could be applicable in small to medium business. And that's the thing, even when I speak on this and I do a webinar, I literally put up about 100 different industries. And I say, one of the preconceived notions is people think that, oh, this wouldn't apply to my industry. We're just mom and pop, or we're retail, or we're wholesale, or we're manufacturing. We have clients in every single one of those industries. It just depends. It differently applies to their business depending on what their needs are. So Marlena, one thing I would do as a starting point, and I'll share this, I think I shared it before, is we have just a simple free Google Doc template I'll share with you that's a great brainstorming exercise, and just answer 2 simple questions. For you and your 2 groomers, I mean, small staff, but at least kind of get them involved in the process, is A, what are you doing that's not a good use of your time, right? That would, and then secondly, what are things on the radar that you'd like to be doing that you can't get to, okay? So things that aren't the best use of your time may be actually grooming, right? It may be ordering supplies. It may be trying to post on social media after you do a project. You take a picture of an animal and you'd like to get all of your social media and getting that done and tagged and so forth. Those are all things that need to be done, or maybe some of those are on the radar. I know we need to overhaul our website. I know we need a better social media presence. I know that we're doing some neat nonprofit things and doing grooming work for low-income individuals. Let's do a press release on it and send it to the local newspaper to get free PR. Right? These are all the little micro marketing things that can be done. So just take some time to brain dump and put in those two categories. Things that aren't a good use of your time, things that are on the radar you wish you could be doing that you can't get to. And that is a great starting point to figure out where could some assistance be needed, right? And dump everything on there. Nothing is like I shared, and I'll share in a webinar. I mean, you'd be amazed what you can use VAs and resources. I mean, I had a VA in the Philippines get my watch fixed, from across the globe by just taking a picture and sending it to her. So I'll share that webinar. Sean, I mentioned that Sean and I I'll get put together that'll show a lot more examples. But start with that to kind of answer those two questions, and that'll be a real good brain dump of things that can add up. And on that first question, things that you're doing that aren't a good use of your time, put an estimated number of hours per month you're spending on that task. You'd be amazed at how quickly those hours add up. Before you know it, you're like, wow, I'm spending 9 hours a month on just chasing down, rescheduling customers that cancel. It's amazing how many of those things add up. And all of those little things can be handled, by an outsourced resource. Next question, Erica Wilkinson. Sorry, I lost my. Erica Wilkinson question. She asked, what are things you have done to rid yourself of negative friendships and relationships? Business description. I have a cleaning business and e-commerce store looking to scale into real estate and marketing. I have previous friends and relationships. And when I tell them about what's going on in my life and my goals, they always seem to get negative or tell me that I should just go get a job at Walmart or that I think I'm better than other people or whatever. It's really hurting my feelings, and I'm trying to figure out how to overcome those feelings. Do I remove myself from those relationships, or what have you done to overcome those things in your entrepreneurial life? Well, Erica, being an entrepreneur can be a uniquely lonely experience sometimes because, unfortunately, all those people that want to throw stones, everything in their life that they interact with, right, whether it be the cookies they're eating or the car they're getting into or the clothes they're putting onto, there was an entrepreneur behind all of that at some point that created the things that they're enjoying in life, right? So someone's got to step up and do the job, right? Unfortunately, there's people like us that want to do that. There's a monk, if you don't get a chance, Google him. It's called Don DePani. And it's one of my favorite speakers we have for another organization that I'm in and did a full day event. And he talks about energy vampires. And he talks about, he literally does an inventory of people in his life every single year. And those that are not adding value or not growing and a part of with him and his relationship and his goals in life, he just has a conversation with them, right? Or just naturally kind of allows that disconnect to occur. There's no energy in not growing or expanding. And unfortunately, those may have been friends and relationships that were right for a certain season in your life. But as you're growing and progressing and moving forward, it's going to be time for a new season of relationships. People that you're meeting right here in AO. That's what I absolutely love about this type of an organization and others I'm involved in is I know they're like-minded individuals because being an entrepreneur is difficult. It's challenging. You're going to hit road bumps. And I feel like, kind of as you're going that entrepreneurial journey, it's nice to have, moments like this and being around people like AO and other that can be that bump to kind of keep you going. When you start nosediving a bit emotionally, mentally, psychologically, it's these relationships that kind of keep you bumped and moving and encouraging you in the right direction. And it's very difficult to do if all you have is negativity around you. So, if they're lifetime long, childhood friends, maybe you marginalize those and it's just certain things that you engage with and you just limit certain conversation and you just really focus on the things you do have in common with those people if you want to maintain the relationship. But if ones that are just constantly bringing you down, maybe time to purge and make a transition. Next question is from Francesca Nicasio. Question she asked, how can a solo freelance writer shift to an agency model, and what's the best way to communicate that to clients? Business description and background. I'm a freelance writer, and I've started hiring others to meet demand and grow my business. Right now, I'm the face of the company, and many clients want or expect me to do the writing myself. I want to switch to an agency model, and I'd love some advice on how to do it right. Should I rebrand my business so instead of marketing myself, I start marketing my team agency, or is it okay to continue what I'm doing, which is to be the face of the company or have other writers ghostwrite on my behalf? Francesca, relative to the other question I answered earlier is part of it is about a decision. Do you want to make that change? Is really, I can tell you the how and some of the elements and some of the steps I addressed in that prior question, but it's really making that commitment. Do you want it bad enough, and are you willing to do what it takes to make the change and shift? And it sounds like your thinking is in the right direction from the way that you sort of described. It's a challenging one. I've actually had to navigate myself over the last year. I mean, Brad Stevens, I speak on this topic globally. I've had a chance to speak all over the world, and I was actually supposed to travel to Malaysia and Australia and Africa, and ended up doing this virtually over the last couple of months. And people have, my name, Brad Stevens, has been synonymous with anything about growth hacking, innovation, outsourcing, VAs. I've been the go-to kind of person. And Outsource Access, which is my brand and my company, is that we launched, is sort of where I'm trying to really raise to be the more visible brand and kind of make myself less visible where that's concerned. So I will say, I mean, if your name is the name of the company, I'm seeing your domain is Credible Copywriting, so that's the name of your business. Unfortunately, your name's not specifically attached to it. If your name is attached to it, it has happened. It can be done. We actually got, 14 or 15 marketing agencies. We actually provide VAs on the back end to do logistics and training. And some of them are named related to the owner. But sometimes they'll just take their last name. If it's Edwards, and they'll make it be the Edwards Group or the Edwards Writing Agency. People like John Maxwell, as you know. I mean, John Maxwell as a brand and a name. People don't expect John Maxwell to be the person that answers the phone when they call the company, but it has become the brand that's associated with it. So it can be kind of a tricky path depending on if you can make that shift and transition. But if you've got and I love that name, Credible Copywriting, if that's the name of your business, because that is part of addressing what I call DFCs, doubt, fears, and concerns, when it comes to people engaging certain services. Is what are the negative stigmas people have? You can imagine when it comes to VAs, I have to deal with, what about time zones? What about competency? How can I trust? Are they going to be there long term? Got a whole list of them. Doubt, fears, and concerns that I intentionally knock down one after another. So having credible copywriting, that's one of the challenges people have, is somebody that knows what they're doing. So I kind of like that name. And it's a part of just really making that be the front name and interface. If you've got some support staff and resources, for example, I mean, my name was the one that went out a lot of times on invoices when people are paying their monthly fees or when they engage with us. And I shifted it. I shifted it all to be from the company, from support at, and then I have staff that now manage that. So it's slowly disconnecting my name being the one that they're seeing specifically associated with everything. I'm still the thought leader, and they know who I am, but when they think about the company or they think about engaging us, it's about engaging Outsource Access, not Brad Stevens as a company. And it's just elevating that, and yeah, it's about getting system and process. It's about flanking the you with you right kind of people, and deciding what does that architecture look like. Is it just you over a whole team of ghostwriters, or do you need to have someone in between there to do logistics and coordination and operations with clients? Do you need to have someone sort of doing sales? What does your org chart look like? Map that out based on what your experience is so far, and put a goal to commit to getting the right people and the processes to bring that org chart to life, and slowly kind of get yourself disconnected, but make sure that you don't compromise on quality. I know the tough thing is when you do an amazing job, particularly with content writing, there's so much nuance to it and messaging and tone and so forth. Right? At the end of the day, if you're going to scale, people aren't going to do it exactly the way you're going to do it, and you have to come to terms with that. You have to be okay with what I have is kind of called the 85 or 90% rule. If stuff can get done, and it's 85 to 90% of what I would do myself, I call it a win. If we're doing brain surgery, we got to be 100%. But it's being okay with that and letting things get out the door. And as we've scaled, I mean, we're at over 160 staff right now, and if I were micromanaging every single interface with every single client, there'd be things I'd identify all over the place and dive in and want to micromanage and fix and so forth, but removing myself and not seeing it and just making sure I got the right people and the right infrastructure and the right processes to handle things. I know that the process runs and helps the business scale, not me micromanaging everything. So again, I'd recommend eMyth. Just revisit that. Even if you've read it, read it again if you're getting in this mindset. And then leadership. Going back and reading leadership, because you're really trying to merge into a leadership type of role. Next question, Law Jackson. Question asked, what are strategies you've used to manage your time and manage all the demands of your time as your company grows? business description and background. I'm a creative shop that does marketing videos and animated explainers. I work with marketing agencies as their animation specialists, and I work with startups. Usually the team is just me. I'm trying to build a proper organization that does not bottleneck on me, but I'm just now trying to come out of freelancer mode. So, Law, it sounds everybody's navigating this challenge is how do you scale and automate and delegate? It's actually the name of our podcast, by the way. It's a phrase I coined a while back ago. Actually, a consultant we worked with kind of mentioned that name to me. I loved it. But it's ultimately about getting yourself out and deciding to grow. But again, it's about that mindset commitment. Are you really wanting to do that? And a lot of people, it's just they don't allocate the time. At the end of the day, they're absolutely exhausted, no energy left, and the time they need to really think about the working on the business and creating some of the architecture I've mentioned and answering some of these other questions to get out of it, they're just spent, and they wake up the next day and they're back in it. So it's really committing that you're going to not get as much revenue and block a day off, even if it's just a full day. Wednesdays are days that you're going to do nothing but work on the business and strategy and growth. So to get tactical on your question, what are the strategies for managing time and all the demands? I'll tell you, I've tried a lot of different types of techniques because you ultimately I want to happen to my day. I don't want it to happen to me as much as possible. And with a young family and we have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, I tell you, unfortunately, that's not going to happen all the time. But I try to intentionally plan. And what I've kind of narrowed down to is 2 things. First of all is, 1, go through that exercise I mentioned earlier. Answer those 2 questions. What are the things that are not a good use of your time? And how many hours per month are you spending on those things? Secondly, what do you want to get to that's on the radar that you can't get to? Just to kind of index and benchmark what that list looks like. And then what I've gotten down to is after I've kind of done that exercise, I literally have and I use we use Teamwork as a project management tool, but I have a Google Sheet, and I've created about 8 different categories. So anytime something comes up that I need to do, whether it's in my EO presidency role or whether it's running, in the business, I have a financial category, I have a management, and then I kind of have in parentheses legal, operations, and HR kind of falls in that. I have sales, I have marketing. I have kind of 3 different categories within marketing. So after I did that brain dump, I figured out what are the macro buckets that most of my activities fall into. And I created those as categories. So my running to-do list in Google Sheets, anytime I have something, as we all know, the anxiety is if you can't get it captured somewhere, right? And so many books talk about that. So have a place you can go capture things that pop in your mind. And so as things come I need to do, I put it on that list, and then I have a drop down, and I put it in which one of those buckets. And the way I've structured my week, and I'm a place now of how I've kind of grown and expanded, is I block off the first 4 hours of every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and block those off. Nobody can book time with me. I use Calendly that people can automatically book time, but they can't book because those are blocked off. And Monday for me is purely task related to this president's or the organization I'm involved with, because there's a lot that's involved there. And I'm purely focused on nothing but those tasks. So I go to my task list, I sort by that bucket, and I do nothing but things related to that on Mondays, right? I deep dive into it. Now, from 12 on, the rest of my schedule is open, right? That it's available if people want to book a call with me. They see that time's available in my Calendly, so I'll have calls that I have. But any of the other time I have, I just tackle things that come up. But I know I've got those first 4 hours dedicated to a really key bucket that's important to me. Tuesdays is purely finance, purely financial, management, legal, HR, and operations things that happen in those first 4 hours. So any tasks that I have that are in that bucket, again, I sort my list, have all those things added up, and boom, that's all I work on, purely focused on it. Because I find I will fail every time if I try and task switch nonstop. I try different things and start every day with the top priority elements, and different things work for everybody, and maybe that works for other people. For me, I needed to have 3 to 4 hour time blocks of focusing on really key initiatives. And again, the back half of the day is just open, that I'll have calls and I'll work on other things, emails that come in and so forth. Wednesdays is purely sales and marketing. Do nothing but do follow-up on sales-related things, any kind of marketing content I need to review or produce. We got a podcast, doing podcast content review and guests. Back half the day is open. And then Thursdays, the first 4 hours is personal. So it's primarily all personal related things I need to navigate. And I put that into my work week so it doesn't fall out. Because again, those create anxiety for me. If it's, a financial thing that I'm kind of working on, or, we just moved into a new house and there's 400 different things with contractors we're navigating. So I make sure I allocate that block. So for me, I know that when I start the week, I have those blocks that just give me a lot of relief that I've dedicated to those key initiatives. But I've given the back half of the day to be open to freeform, adjust, and attack whatever the most urgent types of things, or respond to emails or take phone calls. And then for me right now, Fridays are completely blocked off. I'm truly trying to get to a 4-day work week. We love renting a pontoon boat with my family and trying to go on Friday mornings or trying to do an outing with the family. I leave the afternoon thing as needed. But it's time for me to, frankly, to think. I just got to get away from the day-to-day on it. And Fridays, it's time. I try to spend with my family, but it's also time for me while I'm doing that, as I'm away from the day-to-day of the work. And some of my best problems get solved, during that time frame when I'm just away from the day-to-day and the work. So that's worked for me, and maybe that can be helpful for you. So it's, again, all about automating and delegating. Automate, delegate, and elevate to the proper tasks that are highest return on time. Next question, Jonathan Habercorn. Question, are any specific accounting or legal challenges about paying contractors outside the United States? Business background is in Trizen, team of software architects that specialize in digital transformation of HR systems and processes. The reason for question, sales pipeline looking good and expanding consulting workforce to help implement future projects. Want to reach out to people I've worked with in the past that are absolute rock star independent consultants, some of which are international. Pardon me. As far as legal issues there, it depends. When you're engaging with outsourced, contractors, the vast majority, I would look kind of their local kind of country specifics, things that or as arrangements that we have with them. In some cases, there may be unique ones. But the most part is I try and make sure that they've got some kind of an entity that I'm paying typically. So if it's somebody that's purely on a contractor basis, if you're going through like a Fiverr or an Upwork or what have you, that serves as the business you're paying. So it's just like a W-9 in essence as far as a vendor. But if you find an individual, if it's not a company, so like when people hire us, like with Outsource Access, they're paying us as a company and they get a W-9 and they're paying us just like a service agreement, just like they would pay a marketing firm or any other kind of services organization. But if you're going to hire individuals, I would just encourage that there's an entity that you're paying, if they have one set up, whatever their laws are locally for them to have an entity structured. So you're paying an entity. There's a law, and I'll look it up and post it into the group here. There's a specific law internationally related to agreements that the United States have with certain other countries that's understood that they're going to pay their local taxes. And it's already kind of implied in the arrangement. As far as legal related issues, I think I kind of tied that into the answer to the same question. When it comes to IP and protection, you just have to make a good, intelligent decision on that. If you're hiring a firm to do some really high level IP for your business and coding and development, just make sure that they're bonded, that they have insurance. You set up yourself an international agreement. Again, enforcing it can be a little difficult, so a lot of it's based on trust. What's their prior history, so you can get a good feel of how they've treated other people in the past. Next question, Law Jackson again. Question is, I'm overwhelmed with my current load of projects. How can I find the time to continue sales outreach and onboard good people to help me get the work done? I'm a solopreneur in freelancer mode. I create animated marketing videos for marketing companies and startups. I'm trying to transition from a one-man band to a business owner with a sales team and fulfillment team. Past 2 weeks were a struggle. I have 7 open jobs, with one being urgent. I'm completely overwhelmed. Well, it's similar to what I addressed in some of the prior questions. I know it sounds like a broken record, but again, it's truly a mindset, commitment. It's truly a commitment of you blocking out the time in your week that you're going to work on creating the architecture to get yourself out of being a one-man band. That's the very first step that has to be done. You have to commit to. You have to make the decision to do it. I highly recommend those 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership and Developing the Leader Within You that are John Maxwell books and E-Myth, just even if you've read it, to revisit it and get the right mindset and then commit and say, you know what? I'm going to have to take a little hit on revenue to make the commitment and sacrifice to be able to focus on growing the business and expanding it and getting myself out of solopreneur mode. So similar that I've done is blocking off those blocks per week. If you take a whole day, eliminate all distractions, and then create a great game plan for execution. And one of the things I mentioned on prior calls is I use a system called 4 Disciplines of Execution for goal development and planning. And I'll share the template in the post as well. It's worked incredibly well. It's super simple. And it's pretty lean. It's decide over the next 90-day horizon, what are the 2 or 3 major things you're going to commit to that are going to advance your goal on this, right? And then come up with 5 chronological steps and number them for each of those key initiatives. And have a scoreboard, and every single week, right? And since you're by yourself, you're kind of accountable to yourself. If you had a team, you kind of report together. But you have a weekly grid, and you put where you are each week on that. Are you at a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? So each week you're putting in. If you're staying at a 1 for 3 and 4 and 5 weeks in a row, you're not creating the time you need to advance that goal. So it's a really great, and by coming up with those 5 chronological steps, and it can build upon itself. The first 90 days, create 2 or 3 key initiatives that are just going to help you get oriented appropriately. Maybe it's defining and building a financial model for your business, because I can't tell you how critical as well it is at the outset is just understanding the finances and the economics. What does it look like for you to build a team? What is your billing? You may need to change your billing rates if you're going to accommodate kind of growth. Put together a rough financial forecast, get the right mindset, and then block off the time to commit to doing it. And then create a goal process that you're going to commit to key initiatives. Now, you still got to keep the lights on and do kind of the work yourself and do the solopreneur thing, but put a stake in the ground that you're going to make a commitment to make some of those changes. And I'll share that 40X little goal system that's a great way of keeping yourself accountable in the process. Next question, Allison Koyanagi. Her question is, would you recommend self-funding or getting an investor for a new product-based business? Background is I own a digital marketing agency. I have an idea for a new business. The only problem is that I've never created a product from scratch. I've run a few of the numbers, not all, to get a prototype made and the possible profit margin and so forth. There's definitely a market for it, and although I don't want to say anything specific, it falls into the health fitness industry. It'll be worth it to create, but I'm not sure if I should self-fund this project or get an investor, especially around this COVID time, because I'm being really tight with spending. So Allison, it's a great move on doing the financials. That's the first step. That's really critical. You got to do the financial model, and is it a reality? A lot of people have what I call sort of their Shark Tank idea. The never-ending pool of entrepreneurs that in their home and living rooms at night that have ideas and I got a great idea for a new water hose, but they're never going to execute on it. So a key thing is, what is the financials? Do the research that you need to. Unfortunately, the barriers are low, particularly. Knowing this whole outsourcing VA world, I can literally launch a product out the door and have a website, have a logo done to validate and test market in 2 weeks for less than $500. So that's one of the amazing things of outsourcing and VAs is you can get a prototype, get a logo built, you can data scrape a bunch of prospect customers and test it, right, without having to spend a whole bunch of money on it. So you got an idea for it, but is it valid? So one aspect of that is running a rough financial, and I love doing my financials where I have a box for the variables so I can play around with different price points, different costs, put an estimated acquisition cost number of what it's going to take to acquire a customer for that, to kind of really see what would I have to do to make this profitable. Other thing is doing competitor analysis and research. That's one of the things I use data scraping for all the time with VAs. Is I'll do a screencast recording and have someone go and search the web and put into a spreadsheet for me every single competitor that could be in that market. So let's say that it's a special weight loss oatmeal product. Like you've discovered some kind of special oatmeal. Like I would have a VA go search everything out there related to oatmeal and weight loss and put a master list together so that you can see what the competitive market is. Somebody out there done something similar to it, close to it. So many people go down this path of launching things, and there's 9 other products like that out there. Then they spend all this time and money spinning their wheels because they fall in love with their own idea and the product, and they don't want to listen to there may be some issue that kind of dampens their dream. You got to be real. So Figure out, is there competitors out there? Because you'll find yourself in a mess. I had this personally with we had a teeth whitening business. We manufactured and distributed teeth whitening products, and I did not do enough due diligence on one of the products, and I got a cease and desist letter from Procter and Gamble that one of our products had a similar name to one of their products because I did not do my homework effectively. So, run the financials, do market research and an assessment on it to kind of see, is there competitors out there? And this is all before you even talk about the funding side of it, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're even thinking about getting an investor and they're worth their salt, they're going to ask all these questions, right? Is it valid? Have you run the numbers? What's the competitive landscape? And so forth. And then it's really, at that point, deciding what is the financial requirements. Can you self-fund? What's the minimum number you would need to sell to, if you just dump that money, if you keep doing what your core business is and that pays your bills, if you took all your profit and keep investing it back in, could you grow it? So a lot of times it's evaluate, assess, test the market. Another thing I love doing, particularly in this space, and I did this for a couple products, is go into private Facebook groups. So when we were launching like an online product related to outsourcing a number of years ago, I created a Survey Monkey, and I was trying to get feedback on the name of the product and if people would pay a certain price point. So I created a Survey Monkey, and then I went and joined every single small business and entrepreneur Facebook group that there was. And I went in and said, hey, everybody, thinking about launching this product, would you take 2 seconds to answer? And I made it super simple, not this long survey. All they do is check boxes, and they could write any other comments. And you'll have a couple of people that get into this stuff and are happy to give you tons of feedback and will write a novel. And I think I got 70 or 80 responses just by posting in like 15 or 20 private Facebook groups for entrepreneurs. Now, you need to go join all those groups first, right? In whatever your market or field is, if it's for personal trainers or if it's overweight individuals, there's tons of private Facebook groups out there. But before you fall in love with your own idea, go out there and post that survey, make it super simple, and just say, hey, and let them know, hey, whenever we come out with a product, if we do, I'd be happy to give you a free one if you'll put your email in. And done that a ton of times, and it's just a way to do super cheap and fast. Obviously, I use VAs to go, and I'd have them go find every single Facebook group and join all of them and go and do that posting for me, but you can do it directly if you want yourself. But it's, again, I know you asked about funding, but so much of this is so required on the front end to really get your answers about what it takes. Because then it's a matter, if you determine it's outside of what you want to fund and you think there's real validity and you've assessed the market and there's no competitors and has good financial runway, then you can have a pitch deck and have all that information to go appropriately promote it. All right, next is Marlena Carter. Let's have the last question here, or next to last. Is it acceptable to let any employee go due to their negative mindset or attitude? I own a pet grooming business. I have one groomer who's a pretty good groomer, but 3 or 4 statements that come out of her mouth are negative, no matter the topic, negative. I'm a positive person and can find a silver lining in every single situation, and the complaining really annoys the piss out of me after a while. Is that enough reason to let her go, or is it best if I keep her on for the growth of the business and maybe have a blunt heart-to-heart? How would you handle this? Marlena, as I related to the last question, when it comes to negative people, if it's just friends and relationships, depending on how valuable those are, if they're acquaintances, right? If they have a lot of value, you're assessing and determining to keep them in your life or not. You got a young kind of growing business, and it sounds like if you got somebody that's a decent groomer, I don't know how quickly or easy it is to replace that, but negative energy can absolutely be super toxic. And people like that, just when you've got to be an optimist as an entrepreneur. You've got to be a dose of reality, but you got to be an optimist, and you want to be surrounded by that. And so I would encourage to have that conversation. This is based on my own experience in the past. When I've had this issue, I recently had this on a board that I'm on. My board, I got a 30-person board that I'm a president of and navigating, and had some negative individuals. And I did have to have just direct heart-to-hearts. I just want to share, because sometimes it's a blind spot for them. Maybe they don't realize. A lot of us even have family members and aunts and uncles and mother-in-laws and father-in-laws probably out there that are like this. And sometimes it's a blind spot. It's so just routine for them, they don't even realize that they're that way. So sometimes it's opportunity to sit and just share. Look, I'm trying to grow this business, and as you see as an entrepreneur, you got to be optimistic to do that. And I need that kind of energy around us, and we want it for our customers as well. And I would come with examples. Another thing is, before I learned this from a woman named Anna a while back ago, is in any conflict resolution, you've got to agree on the facts before you can make any progress. So if I were you, I would have some specific examples, because the first thing, and if any of you have been in arguments with a spouse or a friend or whatever, well, tell me an example when. Well, what do you mean? Well, A, B, and C. I would kind of document those and have them and just say, just so I'm not speaking off the hip here, I'd like to give you some examples of things that I'm talking about. And they may hopefully start nodding their head and realize it at that point. So I'd if they're a good person and you think they're a good groomer, could be a part of your business, and maybe it's a blind spot, have that conversation, be prepared with examples, and let them know that this is something that you need to see change, because it's important for the health of your business. And if you continue to see that path, maybe one more reminder, and then you create a path to part ways. And I got a chance to see Alan Mulally speak, who's the CEO of Ford and Boeing, just an absolute icon. And he had this conversation with employees when he did the turnaround at Ford. And he just said, look, these are our core values. This is what we're about. And so for you, it sounds like, a positive, upbeat, committed attitude is one of them. And he'd sit down with people and say, well, it just doesn't look like you're in alignment with these. And that's okay. And I'm happy to help find another job for your opportunity or make an introduction. But this is kind of how we operate. And I've seen several times that that's just not the way you want to operate. And he would just have a very frank conversation with it and make it very amicable. Not like you're fired. Can't believe you're acting this way. It's just this is what we do, and you're not in alignment with it, and we're going to have to part ways. So you can kind of come across at it from that perspective as well. And if you haven't done your mission and core values, getting those stated and documented and clear so everybody is aware of exactly what's expected of them will be a great first step with that if you haven't. So you can use that as something to look back to as a reference point. All right, last question here and hitting our hour mark. Sarah Hamilton. How do I determine which KPIs I should be reviewing as a business owner as I am growing? Business description: I own a hair salon business. I own 2 locations, and I'm expanding, and I want to set up a system to be able to monitor certain data as we grow and look at it quickly. How do I figure out what I should be looking at? And then what system or software do I usually use to actually do it? What kind of consultant do I hire to help me with this? So, again, great that you're asking this, Sarah. To figure out what are the real drivers and the triggers in your business. When it comes to software, I don't know your industry directly, and we got some clients in this industry, I think, but I don't know directly. But typically, there's a software that's specific to your industry that's already kind of built and accommodates to track your data. Average time of haircuts and average cost and tracking all of that, and it has pre-done reports. I know there's software like that for like the tanning industry and the spa industry and salons and so forth. So I'd research that, and software typically is loaded. And a lot of times they've pre-thought of the metrics that are needed that you want to run reports on. Now, sometimes they can also be super overwhelming, and they can have every report imaginable, and it's, well, which one do I look at? At least briefly what I know of kind of the salon industries from my wife actually goes to a woman, and she has a salon in her home, and then I go to a local place here called Roosters. It's just, what are the leading, indicators that drive the lag performance of the business? So that's part of the 4 disciplines of execution model too, is focus on the leading indicators. And so what are things that, if they're right, it leads to a positive, outcome on the back end. One of those is, for example, referrals. How many referrals are you getting kind of coming in the door? That's a leading indicator of success on the back end. How are people rating the performance of their experience with your salon? And what are the rating and the performance? So some of this can be qualitative and not just pure numbers. How are they rating in performance? It amazes me, like my salon, frankly, or the hair barber I go to, that they've yet to ask for my email address and send me any kind of communication. They could send me educational content. They could make it fun, engaging, just to keep their brand top of mind and awareness with me, so I don't ever swap. But they don't. So I would look at, in as far as what are the things that are the main drivers in terms of sales and cost that are driving your top line, kind of performance. And I don't know how all you're marketing and managing your business, but average cut time. I don't know if you're trying to work on sort of high volume, but what is your average kind of cut time that's driving the number of customers that can kind of come through? What are your costs? How well are you really tracking your costs, your back bar? all of your barbicides and all the cleaning supplies and so forth? Are you tracking those and making sure that those stick to a certain percentage of revenue? And I'm sure for your industry, there's benchmarks that for every dollar you bring in, a certain percentage should be supplies, a certain percentage should be labor. As far as your variable expenses, and then your fixed expense that doesn't change is kind of what you're looking at after your gross margin contribution. So I don't know that industry extremely well, but I would really kind of look at managing the leading behaviors, because at the end of the day, it's like, well, we want more sales, right? I want more customers. Well, that's the lag indicator. That's the outcome. What are the leading things that you can do that are the activities to drive that? Can you have a newsletter going out every single month? Are you getting at least X number of social media posts? Are you asking every single customer to take a before and after picture and then post and tagging them in social to spread kind of word of mouth? Are you giving a referral card that they can send out? Are you sending out something they can easily click on a link and post it to their Facebook page about what a great experience that they had? Those are all leading indicators to the lag of driving performance. And then from a cost standpoint, right? Are you having kind of a monthly audit of cost structure and supply chain, and where you're kind of getting your supplies and so forth? So just kind of trying to think off the top of my head some key things, but just kind of thinking about those two categories. Separate the lead and lag indicators. Look for software that's specific to your industry, because a lot of them have predetermined reports. And then I would Google and ask for and look for kind of just benchmarks. What are benchmark KPIs for the salon industry? And you'd be amazed. People have 3 or 4 or 5 key things that they're looking at that may be helpful. All right, well, that brings us close for our time today here. Hopefully, this has been a helpful session with everybody. I know we had a lot of some similar recurring themes. And as always, if anybody's interested, you go to outsourceaccess.com. We offer special promos, especially for the AO community, and you can kind of find more information about us within the portal as well. If you're ever interested in going down that path, we charge an assessment that's fully refundable, so people can kind of go down the path and learn more about our process, and we can help unpack what their needs are. And if we get to the end of it and you don't feel that there's a VA or a fit, we fully refund you as well. So we kind of make it a painless way. So if you go to outsourceaccess.com/process, if you want to check out more about kind of what we do, there's a video there where I walk through our whole process and step by step. And look for a webinar that I'll be coming out with Shawn. I do a 90-minute kind of run through of the whole outsourcing world, tons of case studies, tons of examples that'll hopefully help all of you. So until next time, Brad Stevens, talk to you soon.